Welcome back to this Tuesday edition of Focal Point AFR Talk. Number to call if you want to join the program, 888-589-8840 is the number to call. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the Second Amendment and some of the furor over gun rights. Just one quick item before we jump into that. I think I talked with you about this baker, this guy that bakes wedding cakes in the state of Oregon. He had two lesbians come into his place of business and request that he bake a wedding cake for them. He said, no, I'm not going to be able to do it. Very polite, but he said, I'm not going to be able to do that because of my Christian convictions. I believe that marriage is the union of one man and one woman. Now, they went and got their wedding cake someplace else. A lot of places in town that will give you wedding cakes, and they don't care what your sexual orientation is, but this guy, motivated by a sincere belief based and rooted in the Scripture. Well, that wasn't enough for these lesbians to get this wedding cake somewhere else. They went and lodged a formal complaint with the Attorney General's office in the state of Oregon, and the Attorney General of the state of Oregon is investigating him. If he's found, this is the Attorney General. This is not a civil thing. This is not one citizen taking another citizen to court. This is the Attorney General of the state of Oregon investigating this guy. If they prosecute him and find him guilty, he could pay $50,000 in fine. So again, I've said frequently, we are going to have to choose between the homosexual agenda and freedom, because we cannot have both. Every advance of the homosexual agenda comes at the expense of religious liberty. Every advance of the homosexual agenda comes at the expense of religious liberty. Now, let me shift gears and turn our attention to this whole issue of this battle over gun legislation, gun control legislation. And remember, gun control legislation is not about guns. It's about control. It's not even gun control. It's people control. Now, here is Barack Obama. This is clip 6. Barack Obama talking about his definition of what constitutes a weapon of war. Let's listen.
And by the way, in addition to reducing violence on the streets, it would also make life a lot easier and a lot safer for the people standing behind me here today. We shouldn't stop there. We should restore the ban on military-style assault weapons and a 10-round limit for magazines. And that deserves a vote in Congress, because weapons of war have no place on our streets or in our schools or threatening our law enforcement officers. Our law enforcement officers should never be outgunned.
So that's Barack Obama. These are weapons of war. Sporting rifles which have a magazine that holds more than 10 rounds. They are weapons of war. A Glock semi-automatic pistol, by the way, holds 17 rounds. So in Barack Obama's fevered imagination, those are weapons of war. And I don't know if you knew this. Let me see if I can find that story about Al Capone. The murder rate, the gun rate was higher in Chicago today, is higher in Chicago today than it was when Al Capone was around. The homicide rate in Chicago is higher today than it was in 1929 when Al Capone was running around and his guys had machine guns. Ladies and gentlemen, machine guns were not illegal in the United States until 1934. Now, in January of 1929, there were 26 killings, 26 murders, when machine guns were legal in Chicago. And the population in Chicago was about the same in 1929 as it is today, around 2.7 million. But in the month of January 2013, there were something like 42 people killed in Chicago with guns in 2013 in a city where guns virtually are banned. And yet in 1929, when machine guns were legal, there were only 20, well, only, there were 29. There were fewer murders in the month of January during the days of Al Capone. Now, let's play clip number 7, David Axelrod, I mean, the people in Chicago, they got to be totally embarrassed. They got the worst homicide rate, I think, in the country in terms of just sheer numbers. And so they're always trying to shift the blame. Dick Durbin was out there last week. I had this soundbite in the roster, didn't use it, so we wiped it at the end of the week. But Dick Durbin was out there saying, hey, the problem in Chicago is people go down to Mississippi. He actually said that. People go down to Mississippi. It's easier to get guns in Mississippi than it is in Illinois. So they go down to Mississippi. They get guns there from those hick redneck hayseeds down there in Mississippi, drive them back to Chicago, and shoot our poor innocent children with guns that they bought in Mississippi. Now, here's David Axelrod, and he's trying to shift the blame. Let's listen.
Yeah, we live in Chicago, and one of the reasons we have such a huge problem in this city is that all around us are areas with weak laws and with very lax background checks, and a lot of illegal guns flow into this city. So it is a critical issue to get these background checks, and every law enforcement official will tell you.
So the problem's not Chicago. We're fine. It's all these surrounding neighborhoods. I have an article in the stack somewhere, can't find it right now, but there's a suburb of Chicago. I think the name of this place is Aurora. And this is one of those suburbs that David Axelrod's talking about where they don't have gun laws that are as strict as Chicago's. They had 0 homicides last year, none, zip, nada, not a one, not a single one last year in that suburb. Now, you know, and things are getting just completely out of control. Here's a story, Fox News. There's a 7-year-old boy in Colorado. You know, when I was a kid, and Rob and Jeff, you remember this, when we were kids, we played war all the time. We played war all the time. You had the good guys. You had the bad guys. If you didn't have a rifle, you pretended you had a rifle. And one of the things you did all the time is you threw grenades. You were across some kind of no man's land, and your buddy was in a foxhole over there. So you pulled a pin on a grenade, and you lobbed that thing right into his foxhole, and you made the sounds of the grenade blown up. What's that, Rob? Yeah, dirt clumps. Yeah, you'd use dirt clumps, pretend it was a grenade, and you'd lob it into the foxhole of your buddy. And remember, we had that story about a 6-year-old. I mean, as a kindergarten, maybe 5 years old. He made his finger into a pistol and said, "Pow," got suspended from school. Here's a story about a boy in Colorado. He got suspended from school for tossing an imaginary grenade. And he wasn't even tossing the imaginary grade at a playmate. He was playing by himself in a corner of the playground. Here's how the story goes. A Colorado second grader may be suspended from his elementary school, and I read later this morning, just before I came on air, that he has in fact been suspended after he disobeyed a key rule of no weapons, real or imaginary, when he tossed an imaginary grenade Friday during recess and went psh to indicate that the imaginary device had detonated. Alex Watkins said he was playing the game Rescue the World. He plays the role of a heroic soldier out to rid the world of an evil threat. He didn't make any threats, and he was playing by himself. Apparently he had some kind of he threw the imaginary grenade into a box that he pretended contained these evil forces. So he's playing by himself. He's got a box. He pretends there's evil forces in the box. He pretends he has a grenade. He pretends to throw the grenade into the box with the pretend evil forces. He makes a pretend sound of the grenade going off, and he has been suspended. His word for it was dispended. He has been dispended from school. And his mom said, I love this, "I think that when a child is trying to save the world, I don't think he should be punished for it." And you've got guys like Jesse Jackson. He's out there. This just shows you how brain-addled these people are. Jesse Jackson seriously saying, look, the problem here is that you can use semi-automatic weapons to shoot down airplanes and blow up railroads. I arf you not. He actually said that people with semi-automatic guns can shoot down airplanes and they can blow up railroads. Those are quotes. Shoot down airplanes and blow up railroads. Well, let's go to the phones. Let's go to Paul, Wilmington, North Carolina. Paul, you're on Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian, thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, you bet.
I was a Boy Scout growing up, and was in Order of the Arrow, and it helped greatly with building my leadership skills and helped me become an effective leader. And I can see this going more than just the sexual implications, but just undermining the core values and the teachings of the Boy Scouts. You can believe that even if they make it selective for troops, that this will be indoctrinated. You'll have this diversity training into the core doctrine of what's being taught in the Boy Scouts. It will totally destroy the Scouts.
Well, and I think you're right, Paul. And you think about the phrase morally straight. What in the world is morally straight going even to mean if the Boy Scouts make this change? And how are they going to define morally straight for their boys? I mean, that term is going to become meaningless. The fact is, Paul, that even homosexuals refer to us as straights. Why? Because we're straight. We're not crooked. We're not bent. We're not twisted. We're not perverse. We're straight. I mean, the opposite of straight is bent, twisted, crooked, perverse. And so that term is going to be meaningless now in Boy Scout moral education. All right, Paul, listen, I appreciate the call very much. Thank you for that. Let's go to Mike, Woodland, Texas. Mike, you're on Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Hi, Brian. Four quick points. Your E-Verify thing, I love it. I don't know why anybody would have a problem with that. Come on. If you want this, do this. It's easy. If a policeman pulls you over, you have to show your driver's license.
Yeah.
If you want this benefit and you say that this is your Social Security number, then let's verify it.
Yeah.
Second off, please quit calling homosexuals gay. You need to take gay back from them. Gay is happy. It's, they're homosexuals. That's moral badness. Third point is the ban. Any assault weapon ban that they want to call, you're going to have to define everything and clips and all this stuff. Okay, ban it, but ban it for everybody. If you're on American soil, either foreign in a consulate or on American soil, nobody can have that weapon, that clip, that.
Well, and you got a point there, Mike, and what you're saying is that would illustrate the absurdity of this, that if weapons are so bad, if guns are bad, that we ought to disarm everybody. Our police ought to be disarmed, and that would illustrate the absolute absurdity of that idea. And by the way, Dianne Feinstein, her ban on sporting rifles made an exemption for government officials. So you and me, we can't have them, but the ruling class, the elites, the people that exercise political power, she made a big-time exemption for them. You're a government official. You can pack heat. Ordinary Americans like you and me can't. Focal Point AFR Talk, back in 2.